Okay, I think we should start off. Can't go on waiting for people to come. Um, so far, I told you it's not a chronological state, it's a logical state. And while talking to you about the logical state, I said it is also experimental. Uh, because Hobbes is trying to prove the futility of the nature of authority that was in existence in his own time. So, when we are talking about the state of nature, I told you that the state of nature is not something that once existed somewhere in the world, in the universe. It never did. It is only a logical state. It's logical because he carries out a logical abstraction. Uh, and as opposed to the Machiavellian logical abstraction of removing society from the picture, what Hobbes is doing is removing state and authority from the picture. By the time it is Hobbes, the state as an institution does make an appearance. So with Hobbes, we can talk about the state. We cannot talk about the state till Hobbes. Even when we talk about Machiavelli, we have to talk about either of all the instances that he talks about as either principalities of Italy, or we have to talk about them as what should I say? We should talk about them as uh, um, well, how do I put it? We should talk about them as uh, yeah, principalities. That is what they are, and they are nothing more than that. So, nation, state, all these words are not yet meaningful in the time of Hobbes, sorry, in the time of Machiavelli. But, and that therefore, we call him a proto modern thinker. We don't call him a um, we don't call him a modern thinker, but it is not the case with Hobbes. Hobbes is a modern thinker, uh, though if we examine Michael Oakeshott, uh, one might get a feeling that he's not a modern thinker, but even taking into consideration the argument of Michael Oakeshott into consideration, taking that into consideration, it is still possible to argue. It is still possible to argue that uh, uh, Hobbes is a modern thinker. It is possible to argue that Hobbes is a modern thinker. So we can talk about a state, but it is not a fully developed state as you would see it in the case of Locke. The state as an institution is far more clearly articulated by uh, John Locke. Uh, so we have to take Hobbes as talking about a nascent modern state. And I have told you that the institution of the state is only a modern institution. It is not something that you find anywhere in the world in the pre modern period. Okay. And I also told you while we were doing this dating system that the common era, which is what people talk about today instead of Anno Domini, um, the common era is probably uh, when it is something that begins in the 17th century. And because colonialism by that time had started spreading to different parts of the world, and by spreading to different parts of the world, colonialism was uh, making things common to cultures, because colonialism is not just a political phenomenon. Please remember that always, in every instance, before the traders, it was the priests, the Christian priests, who went to these different uh, continents and tried to convert people into Christianity. And the colonial administration itself established a few practices which are based in uh, the Christian culture, as a result of which we find that the common era probably begins truly only with the colonial period. Okay, when I say administrative practices, I am talking about things such as having a weekly off, which is a day of the Sabbath as per the Christians. And we are also looking at various other things. We are looking at various other developments, such as their passing of laws, uh, which are uh, uh, which are premised and rooted in the culture of Christianity. So the Common Era, therefore, uh, begins at that particular time. Uh, but nevertheless, I suppose you can't have different systems of dating till the 17th century and then say that now is the Common Era. So let's have 1 CE from the 17th century. I don't think that is a, a possible exercise. So we have to accept that redesignation of Anno Domini into um, uh, Common Era and before Christ into before Common Era. Uh, well, so though colonialism began much later, it also retrojected uh, the influences of colonialism were not just prospective, meaning they were not those which influenced the future of uh, the colonies, and therefore, in that sense, the whole world. They also, in retrospect, changed a lot of things, a lot of perceptions about things in uh, in the past when the colonial powers were not really there. So that is what we say about colonial period, and we talk about the Common Era. Now, it is in the modern period only, anywhere in the world, and I reiterate this, uh, that you have the coming into being of the state. And I told you that you can debunk all the criticisms that have been leveled against Hobbes by the likes of Leo Strauss, George Sabine, and even Gettel. And you can say that they were completely at sea in their understanding of Hobbes. They didn't see the state of nature that he created as an experimental state, uh, and they didn't understand that he wasn't performing this experiment uh, to uh, for the sake of the fulfillment of a purpose. Okay, he was actually creating this experiment to fulfill a purpose, and that is the building of the modern state properly. Like I said, in his time, there are some aspects of what went on to constitute the modern state, But the state as an institution getting its shape, form, and most importantly, recognition is something that is due to Hobbes. Okay, and that would not have been possible without Hobbes uh, talking about the uh, experimental state of nature. Okay, so let us say so. The purpose of the experimental state of nature is for the purpose of creating a proper state and a system of authority. I told you, if you look at the method of logical abstraction, what do we find? We find that Hobbes is somebody who is talking about, Hobbes is somebody who's talking about this experimental uh, state, and he is doing so uh, to establish it as a pre-social state of nature. And that is where you should draw your cue uh, from Hobbes about his experimentalism. Okay, you have to draw your cue from Hobbes uh, at that particular point itself. Okay, by saying that human beings sprout out of the ground like mushrooms, and by saying that there is no society, it is a state of all against all, he's talking about the futility of the authority of his own time. He has abstracted the political, he has abstracted the nature of authority from his own time period, and this abstraction has given him, uh, this experimental abstraction has actually given him a picture in which you find that it's a state of all, a war of all against all. So Hobbes is actually asking himself this particular question: if there is authority, and in the presence of this authority, if people are misbehaving, not following rules and regulations of society. If they are doing that, what would they do if there is no authority at all? That is his, that is basically his argument. He's trying to understand human behavior in the absence of authority. And why is he trying to do so? Because human behavior is not something that is acceptable even with the existence of authority. So he believes human beings human beings have to be regulated by authority, and only then a human society is possible. Okay, so what he's trying to establish is that in the absence of authority, human beings are incapable of living an orderly life. If they have to live an orderly life, then you need authority. And the existing form, the then existing forms of authority were unable to do so. And that is why the 100-Year War, the 30-Year War, okay, civil strife in British or English society, all these things for him were indications of the failure of the nature of the authority that existed in his own time. Okay, so what he's asking for is a completely different kind of authority. Now, he has to explain the reason why human beings are unable to live their lives properly in the absence of authority, or because of an inadequate or bad kind of authority. Okay, so he has to explain that. He, the explanation for that, natural rights are rights given to people, human beings, uh, by what do we say? They are rights given to people by nature. Okay, So what are these rights? Okay, everybody talks about natural rights, but how many actually know what these rights are? The concept of natural rights is very clearly articulated in John Locke, but in Hobbes, you don't find the same clarity. You do not find uh, what natural rights are being explained in detail by uh, Hobbes. You don't find him giving any proper explanation. What he says is, in fact, he approaches rights through natural laws. Okay, he approaches the concept of rights through natural laws, and his main argument is he says natural rights are not repugnant, which means they are not in confrontation. They are not in confrontation with natural laws. Okay, and they're very much in tune with natural laws, and nature and natural law are not capable of creating a system of rights that would lead to the establishment of society, and also of capable of creating, uh, they're they're not capable of creating or establishing a society, and they're also not capable of regulating uh, human life. Nature and natural law are not capable of creating a system of rights that would lead to the establishment of society. And also regulation of human life. Now, here, most of the things that people say about natural rights and Hobbes are those which have been inferred, because Hobbes does not clearly specify uh, this is what I mean by natural laws, this is what I mean by natural rights. He doesn't specify all that. It only seems, it is usually inferred, let me put it that way. It is usually inferred. How does this happen? So it is, he's basically saying that it is possible to survive. The natural rights are those which make it possible for a human being to survive by having a claim over the fruits of nature. That is what he seems to explain rights as. Okay, that people basically can eat things that are available in nature. People can also uh, drink water and other substances which are available in nature or in the products of nature. So he is talking about natural rights as those which are given to human beings by nature for their survival. However, he, like Machiavelli, as being greedy, fickle, not peaceful, and always willing to fight for more. This is exactly what Hobbes gives us about, uh, he gives us a picture about the human being. While doing so, he also says, no, uh, yeah, the human being is, uh, what was I saying? That has just gone out of my head. He also says that the human being is capable of rational thinking. So there are two opposite things that he's saying. On the one hand, he's saying that they are fickle, they're greedy, not capable of living peacefully, and willing to fight for more than what they require. But he's also saying that they are capable of rational thought. So he says the second quality helps human beings overcome the first. The first is this greedy, fickle, and all that kind of thing. Okay, but rational thinking, he says, is capable of uh, basically overcoming the problems uh, of the first. This again has been the another get down, get down. This is again something that this is again something that uh, has been seen by um, a lot of commentators as a logical inconsistency in Hobbes. But Hobbes needs to have paint this picture if he has to create this social contract that he wants to create. So please remember, none of these people, none of these great philosophers write anything arbitrarily. They don't write things arbitrarily. There is a great deal of thought behind the various different things that they say, the various different things that they talk about. There is always a great deal of thought. It is something that is written explicitly the way it is, because there is also an implicit purpose. There is an implicit purpose, and to reach that implicit purpose, you have to do this, which is precisely what Machiavelli does. Machiavelli also paints a picture. He paints a picture of a human being who is somehow, who seems to be incapable. Okay, he seems to be incapable of being anything more than fickle. Okay, and not having steady thoughts. He paints that picture. But why is he painting that picture? Because he also is trying to establish a certain kind of authority. He is also trying to establish a certain authority of the prince. Now, by painting a picture of the human being as being fickle, greedy, and all that, neither Machiavelli nor Hobbes are basically trying to give us a construct that human beings are incapable of ruling themselves. They are not doing that. They are painting this picture to demonstrate how human beings should and can rule themselves for the sake of prosperity, for the sake of happiness, all these things. Okay, so like Machiavelli, Hobbes is also a humanist. A humanist is one who believes in the potential of the human being to do various things. So why is a humanist then painting this picture? He's painting this picture basically so that he can bring to fore the nature of authority that he has in mind. So Machiavelli and Hobbes are united by a purpose. Okay? They are united by a purpose, which is bring out the best form of authority. They are united in this. They are united in presenting a picture of the human being which is more or less the same. Okay, the difference is in his experiment, Machiavelli abstracts society. Okay, but Hobbes abstracts the state and authority. That is because between the two of them, there is a substantial time difference. Society has changed, and with the changes in society, you also have to change the way you articulate your philosophies, right? So the purpose is absolutely the same. The difference lies in the way in which they approach this experimentation. Machiavelli simply doesn't pay any attention to the existence of society, religion, none of those things. For him, they are non existent. Hobbes is painting a picture which he says is pre social. And he says human beings are greedy. And therefore, the rights of nature, which are there for the survival of the human beings, are used in different ways. The rights given by nature, people don't confine themselves only to those natural rights, they go beyond them. And that is what makes it a warlike situation. Not warlike situation, a situation of war of all against all in the state of nature. That is what he's doing. So, his purpose is to show that the existing authority is a nonsensical form of authority. If there is so much strife in society, then it basically means that there is something wrong with that authority. That is the purpose of Hobbes' state of nature. And to establish an authority that he desires to, he has to paint the picture of the human being exactly like Machiavelli did. Now, we've been saying that Hobbes talks about rationality of the human being in the state of nature. So, I think that needs to be qualified. What does he mean when he says that human beings in the state of nature are rational? Here, he gives us an argument about the fundamentality of human nature. We've used this expression before. Fundamentality of human nature. Let me also, since we've used this here, this has been confused by a number of writers who tell you that Hobbes has a psychology. No, Hobbes doesn't use any psychology. Hobbes has never heard of the word psychology. Psychology is a term that came into being in the last decade of the 19th century, and that too very sporadically. It is a 20th century phenomenon, psychology. What we find in these people is the fundamentality of human nature. Okay, uh, when we were doing political ideologies, and when I was uh, explaining uh, a few things uh, about the communitarians, uh, and even Jeremy, when I was explaining Charles Taylor, when he talked about the voice of nature, uh, in that, what does Charles Taylor do? He takes recourse to Rousseau's argument, okay, where Rousseau portrays that by birth and by nature, all human beings have goodness in them. They have goodness in them. And this goodness is corrupted by the bourgeois civil society. Okay? That is the argument, that a point, not an argument, one of the many points that uh, Charles Taylor makes. So if you're saying, Rousseau said, by nature, by birth, human beings are good. That is also a fundamentality of human nature, which means you're saying fundamentally. What is fundamental? The most basic quality. Hmm? If any of you at any point went to these coaching institutes for uh, maths or for medicine, they'll tell you we instill fundamentals. And in our time, and when we were young people, we had shortened fundamental to funda. And people would say, he's got his fundas right. Okay. So when somebody says you have got your fundas right, what it basically means is that you are, this man knows I have a class now and he still calls. I'm sorry about that. If you say somebody has got his fundas right, it means that you've got the fundamentals in place, all the basic principles, the most basic principles in place. So the argument of fundamentality of human nature is that human nature on its own is unwavering. Okay, it doesn't waver. There is a pattern to human behavior which comes by birth. Now, this pattern can take up other forms because of corruption which happens through society. But otherwise, you'll say human nature is something which is, it's not bad at all. We are not born bad. So I quote lyrics. Yet again, I've quoted these once. I quote these lyrics of Roger Waters, in which he says, you could have been born in Shreveport, or you could have been born in Tehran. It really doesn't matter where you are born, because a baby means no harm. They have to be taught to despise us or hate us. They have to be taught to raise our houses to the ground. They have to be taught that their God will take care of them. Their God, my God. Think about it. Can you have so many gods? But that is how propaganda happens. Your God, my God. So they have to be taught that their God will take care of them. Their God will set them free. They have to be taught all this. So what is he saying? It's a very, very Rousseauian argument. It's a very, very Rousseauian argument that when you're born, you don't even know what is harm. You don't even know what is harm. John Stuart Mill also says that, by the way. John Stuart Mill also says that there is no such thing as harm by birth. The harm principle, he says, is something that comes in society. So, anyway, to come back to fundamentality of human nature, if you say there is a fundamental human nature, then it is unwavering, unvarying in all human beings. And it is here that Hobbes locates his rationality. So we said people are all greedy, fickle, not peaceful, willing to fight. Then how are they rational? Because of fundamentality of human nature. And what is Hobbes's fundamentality of human nature? We talked about Rousseau. Hobbes's fundamentality of human nature is that man is governed by two drives. What are these two drives? Appetite What are these two drives? The two drives are appetite and aversion. Please remember this, because when we come back to the, or when not come back, when we go to the utilitarians, they invoke this very argument. They invoke this very argument that man is governed by two drives, appetite and aversion. So, what are these? Appetite Okay. Appetite is a movement towards pleasure, and aversion is a movement away from pain. That is what Hobbes is talking about. That is rational. Of course, it's rational. You'll say it's deviant if somebody seeks pain and avoids pleasure. You say it's deviant behavior, right? It's considered to be deviant behavior if you seek pain and avoid pleasure. So, in order to make appetite as the sole driver of society, you or Hobbes needs okay, we'll go up from here. How wonderful. Hobbes says people enter into a social contract. Why do they enter into a social contract? They enter into a social contract to a life which is not a war of all against all, and that which allows only for appetite and has no place aversion. So now you see I, the scheming that happens in Hobbes. He schemes in such a way. There is a reason why he builds the state of nature in a particular manner. And then he tells you that by nature human beings are this, that. But ultimately, when he is talking about the fundamentality of human nature, he's not invoking fickleness. He's not invoking greed. He's not invoking this warlike living. He's not invoking any of those. What is he invoking? He is invoking these two drives, two rational drives that govern human behavior. One is appetite, seeking things that are nice. I put it in pleasure. Pleasure is actually what Bentham puts in. In Hobbes, you don't really have the articulation of that particular word, pleasure. Pleasure is something that uh, Bentham talks about, and he draws from Hobbes, by the way, and so does Mill. Mill also talks about, when he talks about the harm principle, he invokes Hobbes. So, what we find is that ultimately Hobbes reduces human behavior to these two fundamental drives that govern all human behavior. These are fundamental because they're there in everybody. So ultimately, Hobbes is not talking about the other qualities that we talked about. He's just come down to this: appetite and aversion. So that's why they are rational. They know what gives them a good life. A good life here, not as a morally good life, a good life as a life of comfort, a life of security. People know that. They are already aware of that. People also are averse to certain things which cause them pain, which cause them suffering, which makes life unstable. We all look at it. Who wants life to be unstable? Hmm? Who wants life to be unstable? I'm a, these days, I'm an extremely unhappy man. I'm an extremely unhappy man. And why? I am unhappy because of the fact that even though it's been 2 years since my dad passed away, first it took me more than a year to get this house. This is the only thing my dad left for me. And he left it with a whole load of instructions, which are not necessary to discuss in a class. So, and now when I'm trying to get the water connection onto my name, that is not happening. It's not moving. When I try to get the electrical connections onto my name, that again is not happening. The bureaucracy, corruption, they are horrible. So since I was not able to deal with it, I have asked people to deal with it. I told them, I'll give you something. Just get this done for me. And these people have their own work to do. So they don't like give 100% of their time to you to do your work. So they are doing several things, and whenever they find time, they go in pursuit of this. And as luck usually would have it, when they go, the chap who is supposed to do whatever work that you want to be done is not sitting in the chair, he's gone somewhere. So these people have a very small window where they can wait. So they'll wait for 15 minutes, maximum half an hour. If it doesn't come, then they go off. They go off to do their other work. And I have to once again start waiting, calling these people, reminding them what's happening to my work. And they'll say, we are doing. That fellow is not doing this fellow is not in place. So you have all these. So it's uh, mentally, I'm just tired out. I'm tired out. And I get very sick of this thing when people tell me, oh, you got a house in Himalayas. I want to tell them right now, this house is draining me of my money. It's not getting me any money. It's draining me of my money because of the fact that my father told me, please take care of the house for as long as you can. Don't see it as a money making thing. He gave me the story of how hard my grandfather had to work. I come from a family of teachers. So it isn't, I mean, building a house for a teacher at any time was never an easy thing. So my father told me all the difficulties that my grandfather went through and said, don't look at this house as money. He said, what Charminar is to Hyderabad, this house is to you. So I have to put in money for maintenance. Whereas people are thinking that I'm sitting over a huge pile of money. The reality is I don't have money because every few days something goes wrong. I have to get it changed, and nothing costs less than 50,000, 1 lakh, nothing. So, in those kind of circumstances, I'm not happy. My mind is always disturbed. It's always disturbed. And I wish I could run away from this. Literally, I wish I could run away from this. So there is a great deal of truth in that appetite and aversion thing. We don't want things that cause us discomfort, those which trouble our mind. When something troubles our mind, even if you do something stupid like I do, I try to sit and watch some nonsensical kind of program like Vampire Diaries or Bosch. I try to see some stupid programs so that I don't have to think. I don't want to see, you know, Sham Benegal movies. I don't want to see Govind Nelani movies because they'll again make you think. They are very deep in their substance. They make you think. And for an agitated mind, I don't feel like doing it. So my escape is seeing this mindless nonsense. That is the way I try to escape. But I realize, I realize that even this mindless nonsense doesn't allow you to escape. If your mind is preoccupied, if you're caught up in problems, nothing you do will give you a peace of mind. I saw, I've been having these blackouts in lectures. You saw one today where I didn't know what I was saying right in the middle of a lecture. And this happened before also. It happened before also. That day Akshay prompted me. Today he's not here. If he's here, he normally prompts. So I've been having these problems. And so Hobbes is absolutely right. He's absolutely right when he talks about the fundamentality of human nature. There is no doubt about that. There is no doubt about that. And this whole thing that, human beings are fickle, human beings are greedy, they don't seek peace. All these things are basically a diversion ultimately to bring you back to this argument that we are governed by these two drives. Because Hobbes is not just saying we need authority. we need authority. He's not saying just that. What kind of authority do we need? That is what Hobbes is talking about. He's leading us deliberately and in a very, very planned and systematic manner towards a certain kind of a social contract. And this contract will establish a certain kind of authority. In fact, Hobbes will say it'll establish the only authority that can rid human society of all its problems and give people a life based in peace, tranquility, and longevity. Hobbes is a very astute thinker. When he said life is short, Hobbes believed, when he said life is short in the state of nature, he wasn't saying it is short because of people just fighting the wars. He understood human nature, and by understanding human nature, he was able to get to the basic crux of the matter, which is people need peace in order to live long. People don't live very long if they don't have peace of mind. Now, modern medicine, for example, tells us that. Modern medicine tells us that, we have to have uh, a stress free life. Okay, at one time, people said it's only past 40 that you are susceptible to heart attacks, heart disease. But now, given the stress of modern life, this capitalist life, where it is perform or perish, that's what company jobs are. And that's why I feel a certain sense of guilt taking the amount of salary that I'm taking. Because the same salary that I take, the person in a private organization, a big corporation, is subjected to so much stress and pressure that their day literally doesn't end. They work through the night Some of these IT professionals, they sleep in the office because they have deadlines. They sleep in the office, get up and start work again. So just look at that, how very, very difficult modern life is. In fact, anyway, let's not get into that. I've run out of time, I've realized. Will you come for an evening class today? Will somebody answer me, please? Is anybody here?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's at least good to know. I thought I was just speaking to the computer screen. Uh, will you come for a 1 hour class in the evening
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
so that I can get on with the contract and finish it off? At
Okay,
least,
sir.
is that okay?
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Okay,
Yeah,
sir.
because it's a falling rate of attendance. I started with the first class, there were 14 people. Now it has come down to 4. So I guess by the time this semester is over, it'll be down to 0. Hmm. So I've already put a link. I put it on the other group. Okay, I didn't put it here. All right.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Please go to the other group and join the meeting at 5:30. I'm also not keeping well, so don't worry. I'm not going to keep you for long. Uh, maybe an hour maximum. I won't last beyond that. Okay. So it's just that I want to finish off the syllabus. I told you right in the beginning that this unit is a very, very big unit. It's not an easy unit to do. It's really not an easy unit to finish. So, and then I have that whole of feminism, and I don't know that feminism is okay. That can be, I can deal with it, but I'm truly scared of Ronald Dworkin because to teach you in terms that you can understand, Ronald Dworkin is a huge challenge. Huge challenge. Not just a challenge, it's a huge challenge, and I'm literally scared of how to deal with him because I have a feeling if I teach him the way I taught the law students, then all of you will disappear. You'll just, these things that are there, you'll go away. I'll be left sitting alone and talking to myself. That's how difficult Ronald Dworkin is. Okay. Anyway, so we'll cross a bridge when we come to it. So let's finish the social contract today of Hobbes. Please come in the evening at 5:30. please go to the other group. I've already put the link there. Thank you very much. See you in the evening.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.